All right. Look at that. It's starting to look like a real talk show over here. How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the Yard Sign. I'm your host, as always, Johnny Torres. Thank you so much for watching. Oh, look, there's our list of topics for today. I'm very excited. Starting off 2020 with a producer. I'm so pumped about this. If you can't tell, my smile from ear to ear should give it away. Let me tell you what. I'm really excited about the year ahead. Of course, we had a huge show last week. If you didn't catch that, go back and watch it. Had like 6 people on the show. But even through the holidays, lots to talk about. I didn't think there would be, but never a dull moment with President Trump behind the wheel. So, before we get into today's topics, as you see right there, let's go ahead and pull those topics up. Let's go to the wide shot on one. And let's introduce today's cast right here next to me. This gorgeous beard over here is Joe Simon. And Joe's hanging out. He's been here a few times before. Welcome back, buddy.
Always good to be back.
Thanks, man. And if you hear me saying "huh" or "what," I had like a cold and my ears are still plugged up. So
yeah, turn this way for us.
Yeah, exactly. Speak loudly, please. I feel like I'm 80 today. And then, of course, that handsome gentleman there, as always, back in the center chair after traveling the world.
Yeah, little bit of time off, but I'm happy to be back. And I watched the show last week, and I'm sitting there listening to all you guys, and I'm like, you need somebody to come back and be right about everything, and you need somebody to come combat all of Aniebal's, incorrect talking points, all that. I mean, like, you need that, and I'm glad to be back so I could do that.
Yeah, well, but you did get some good snow in, and
I did. I got some snowboarding in over last week, so I was really excited about that.
Very jealous.
Yeah.
I wish I could be Jake Hoffman. And new to the show, everybody over there on the third seat.
Welcome.
Let's say hi to Chris. Now pronounce VerKuilen.
VerKuilen.
There we go.
I was actually told by somebody at the Red Wings game last week how to pronounce my own last name. They're like, you know how to say that name? I was like, yes, it's mine. It's pretty funny. It's an obscure name, but I got to be able to get that.
Yeah. All right. Well, these are radio mics, so make sure you get up nice and close to that. Sure. There you go. And again, thank you everybody watching. We hope you are going to be enjoying today's show because, again, plenty to talk about. If we want to go ahead and go to camera 2 and bring up that menu again, we'll run down today's topics. Of course, never a dull moment in Hollywood, as well as the Golden Globes were last night. We're missing the S on the end of that, but that's okay. Ricky Gervais, who I think is absolutely hysterical as a host, although not so much on his version of The Office. I didn't think
I agree with you 100%.
Yeah,
I never liked
the British version of The Office. Not great, but we'll talk Golden Globes, primarily Ricky Gervais, who did an amazing job at just like destroying the libs and Hollywood last night during the Golden Globes. Of course, the big news coming out of the White House and of course the Trump's foreign policy is the killing of the general al-Soleimani also. Yep. Yeah, and in Iran, or he's from Iran. He was killed in Iraq. We're going to talk about the fallout from that, including Kenya, and of course the unfortunate news that we lost 3 soldiers in that attack in Kenya just about a day ago. We'll get into just a quick update on the Democratic primary. Not a whole lot to talk about there, so that'll be quick. Jungle primaries here in Florida. If you don't know what that is, it's okay. We didn't either. We had to do a little bit of research on that, and so we'll kind of be picking that apart because that could really change Florida's politics in a huge way. And interestingly enough, it may end up shooting Democrats in the foot. Go figure. We'll do a little bit of an overview because there's lots of movement in the congressional district races across Florida with some retirements, whatnot. There's some really solid primaries going on. So we'll talk a little bit about the congressional district races. And, of course, as people often do around the new year, kind of a look ahead at what's the GOP going to look like in a post-Trump era. So we'll take a look at the GOP in 2024, given that, again, the president's still looking really strong in re-election. And then we'll do a little bit of an homage, a little bit of just a remembrance of a young Republican who passed away over the holidays. His actual birthday would have been today. And we'll talk a little bit about Robbie Foster here to close out the show. So, guys, Golden Globes. I know none of us really watched it.
No, I was.
we didn't watch that garbage.
So for people that don't know how the sausage was made on this show, we have a chat where we basically say, hey, what are we going to talk about this week, right? Yeah. And so when everyone was like Golden Globes, I was like, do I have to go watch the Golden Globes? Are you kidding me? And I have to go watch a 3-hour award show for us to talk about it. I was like, I thought we'd do a political show. But I'm actually really glad that I got to sit and watch Ricky Gervais's opening monologue because it was fantastic.
That's all you had to watch.
I appreciate that. It was only 8 minutes. So, but he did a great job, and I think that what you're seeing out there right now, like on the internet, and what people are saying about it is a real he's getting applauded. I mean, from everybody other than people in that room, right?
So, it was quiet.
Yeah,
Tom Hanks, you saw his face.
Tom Hanks is a meme now.
Pass me the liquor.
Yeah.
At his table.
Well, and he's not really political, so he's in the clear.
Way he leans. He's talked about Trump in the past.
No, a little bit.
He doesn't get too bad.
Right. But I mean, but again, he's Tom Hanks, so he kind of gets a pass.
Yeah. He's making faces because I think he's probably understands the severity of the situation of him. Like he's in a very tight. He's probably a lot of tension in that room, right?
Oh, but
man, when he looked and they cut to Tim, I was going to call him Tim Apple, but Tim Cook.
Tim Cook, yeah.
And they said he's making jokes about Apple having, slaves and sweatshops in China. I mean, just bravo, Ricky Gervais, to his face. And then, I mean, I think that was a great comment, but what stuck out to me more than anything is him making a joke about Jeffrey Epstein not killing himself.
Oh my God. Okay, so let's do this.
And that crowd groaning.
Hold on.
The crowd groaned.
Shut up, he was your friend.
And shut up, he was your friend. I mean, what a joke. Who is
he just nailed him.
Nobody outside of Hollywood is groaning at that joke now.
No.
If you do that joke at a stand-up bar and anywhere in the country, it will kill. Yeah. In that room, you're groaning, really? It shows you what they're up to.
Well, and that's what I love about Ricky Gervais.
Yeah.
Is that he's not afraid to just call you out, and in the harshest way possible. He just lit that room up. So, but before we get into it a little bit more, I wanted to actually read exactly what he said because it was that brilliant.
Yeah. If you didn't actually see it yet, go and Google the opening monologues after the show. After the show.
After the show. You definitely want to catch it. It's only 8 minutes, but you can watch that after tonight's show. So he said, you could binge watch the entire first season of Afterlife instead of watching this show, talking about the Golden Globes. He goes, that's a show about a man who wants to kill himself because his wife dies of cancer, and it's still more fun than this. He goes, spoiler alert, season 2's on the way. So in the end, he obviously didn't kill himself, just like Jeffrey Epstein.
And the crowd groaned at that joke.
Yeah.
And I mean, so again, I think it just kind of shows you where they lean, politically, morally,
right.
Anything like that. So
and a little shout out to Cassie because just before the show started, she posted one of his Instagram posts where he's actually laughing at the fact that people are calling him right wing,
right?
Because of the types of jokes he was making.
Yeah, people thought he was right wing, and in 2020, that's right wing, to come out and make jokes about things that are, I feel pretty obvious.
And if you're from the UK, he's super left wing.
Right.
Yeah.
He's the complete opposite.
The window has shifted so far left, and I wouldn't.
Yeah.
I know of Ricky Gervais from his anti-hunting stance. I'm on Avid Hunter, and I have seen his posts and how he tears apart the hunting community, so I know he's left. So when I saw him trending, I was like, oh, this guy again. But I was so pleasantly surprised to see the wake-up call that he was giving out and what he had to say. What I found to be the most tone-deaf part is after he was like, don't do this. This isn't your place. This is entertainment.
Oh, that's the next one, but go ahead.
They still came out and had their political ploys to spread this entertainment.
Yeah.
As if they didn't have enough of a platform.
They already had their speaches written, though.
Oh,
They weren't.
Yeah, they weren't expecting that.
Speech out just because Ricky Gervais said that.
But what I did love, because I did kind of catch the end of it, and what was funny was the awkwardness of Brad Pitt, especially. Who didn't know what to say. He kept kind of searching for what he was or wasn't going to say, and he wasn't. So at the end, I think he closed it off with just be kind to somebody.
Yeah, something that no one could be that upset about.
Didn't he say he would have saved Leo DiCaprio in Titanic?
Oh, that's right.
He closed it out.
Which
with that
again,
that
a 20-year-old joke, really?
Yeah,
I mean that joke's literally about 20 years old.
That was funny.
Yeah.
I still like it better than
a Titanic joke in 2020. Come on now.
It's still better than that one with Pontificate, the one from Last Man Standing. pontificating about women's rights.
Right.
On the stage there, it's like this is not a place for this unhappy conversation.
And so what's funny is of course the media is barely talking about this, right? Because he basically embarrassed all of them.
And like I'm not up early enough to watch the Today Show, but I've heard from one of our sources that if you watch the Today Show, they talked about the Golden Globes, and the headline is Ricky Gervais's monologue, which it is almost every single time.
That was the only interesting thing about the whole thing.
Sure, but that's how most award shows are, right? It's usually the monologue and the comedian and what did they say.
Right.
And the Today Show completely skipped over that. Like, you know that a producer is not happy about some of the things that they said or what it was. I mean, it's like, but how is the mainstream media going to pass over it? Because I can tell you what, I don't know if you want to call it the alt-right, media or whatever you want to call it, but like you look at the Instagram memes, you look at the Facebook memes and the pages and everything that's coming out, all of those stories. As soon as he did the monologue, like my Facebook feed blew up.
Yeah. Yep.
It was hysterical. So here's the line that really, just scorched the place.
Sure.
So Ricky Gervais says, "You say you're woke, but the companies you work for, it's unbelievable. Apple, Amazon, Disney." He goes, "If ISIS started a streaming service, you'd call your agent." He goes, "So if you do win an award tonight, don't use it as a platform to make a political speech. You're in no position to lecture the public about anything." He goes, "You know nothing about the real world. Most of you spent less time in school than Greta Thunberg." He goes, "So if you win, come up, accept your little award, thank your agent and your God, and F off."
Yeah, it's a great.
I was wondering
if
you're going to clean up the
brilliant.
last part or not.
Huh?
I said I was wondering if you're going to clean up the last part.
Oh wow,
we haven't made it so far as to add bleeping into live streaming yet.
We're trying not to get banned by YouTube.
Next time.
Yeah, next time.
Oh my gosh. Well, again, so I think, in a way though, I do think it tempered some of what may have been kind of a big platform
they
for
looked
Hollywood.
Stupid. They would look stupid,
especially again given what just took place in Iran and all of that, and so
he probably stopped about 50% of the speeches from happening last night.
Yeah,
I'd say that if I was sitting in there and I had like a whole speech about like what not to do in Iran, and I've been in 2 movies so far this year, and I'm just like I'm probably crumpling it up and throwing it out and just being like,
I'd have been embarrassed.
I'll thank my agent.
Well, what was brilliant too is like Joaquin Phoenix, who was like the only other acceptance speech. Like he actually went up there, and I think his spin on his political speech was much more welcome, in the sense that he was talking about environmentalism and climate change, but he said, you know what, we need to put up or shut up, is basically what he said. He goes, we need to stop taking our private jets to Palm Springs and
going an hour away on a private jet.
Then trying to lecture people on environmentalism and climate change, which is, again, it's a great point.
I think it's a great point, and I think that it falls on deaf ears in that crowd though, because I mean, again, you look at the world and you make billions of dollars a year being a movie star, and someone says, hey, get on my private jet, let's go down a couple hours away.
Right.
They're going. You're going every time.
And Leo DiCaprio, who's probably the biggest environmentalist in that room, and dude has a mega yacht like you wouldn't believe.
Yeah.
Okay, and I'm sure he flies private everywhere, on a whim. I'm sure.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm glad at least Joaquin was had enough sense to kind of call him out on his hypocrisy.
Yeah.
All right. So that's a little bit of our Golden Globes talk. Not really much worth.
Yeah, we're done with that. That's entertainment news.
They did also. He also made a joke about Harvey Weinstein during the thing.
Yes.
And
they're ignoring that one too.
See it on the Today Show is because he referenced Harvey Weinstein, and they're all connected to him.
Yeah. You're right. And that was actually right after one of the acceptance speeches.
Yes.
Yeah, I caught that one, but it's funny because the article where I got the transcript from what Ricky Gervais said completely omitted that one.
And you know what's really interesting to me is that if you took his entire speech and you gave it to all of America, left or right, I feel like 95% of the country, probably like 99% of it, would find it pretty relevant, pretty funny.
Yeah.
And it just, again, it's amazing to me that he's in the one crowd of like 100 people, and then all the people who make the decisions on what to roll with the media the next day, those people are the 1% of people that are like, this isn't funny, this isn't, this was too far, or whatever, you're not allowed to work here anymore.
But you know why he's the perfect host for this particular award show is because it's put on by the Hollywood Foreign Press. And I think their ambivalence, like their hatred of the United States, I think like for a guy like Ricky Gervais to come in and basically scorch the room like that, I think they love it.
He turned it into a roast.
Oh
he has less skin in the game too.
I think they love it.
Any of these people because he's not involved in Hollywood as much as he is overseas.
No.
You know?
Well, again, and I think that's his signature. Like, he's kind of broken that seal. And just like a lot of comedians, you know, it's like they're allowed to go to certain places that other people can't because they're known for that type of humor. And so, like, he's already known for having that type of humor, and you know what you're going to get with him. And I think that it's refreshing, especially for us, that we're not of that world, and for somebody to come in and kind of check them and be like, hey, like, you need to be knocked down a notch.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Because we don't care about what they think, right? At the end of the day, we do not care about what celebrities think.
Wholeheartedly. My closing thoughts on that is, when I was a kid, I used to enjoy watching these shows, the Oscars, the Emmys, all these things. I could see movies that I wanted to, you know, the actors get rewarded for their performances. And as much as I enjoy watching someone that I disagree with get punched down, I want to go back to watching these shows for entertainment and not having to worry about being, you know, having my beliefs, you know, degraded.
But it was all fair
TV,
play.
You know?
But it was all fair play because it's
play.
true.
Yeah.
I mean, when we're talking about Weinstein, you know, how many of those people, and they're probably covered up for him,
And-
or just completely
and
look the other way.
And in the same 24 hours, 60 Minutes ran a entire episode on Jeffrey Epstein's probably not being a suicide. That was 60 Minutes. That was like mainstream news. And again, this was a conspiracy like a year ago, by the way.
Right.
And so it's a little bit refreshing to see that that's kind of what's going on right now. And I think if you polled 99% of America, they would look at this and they're kind of like, I don't want to say they're taking the red pill quite yet, but there's like, it's just a basic, like, just uniform, just simple common
Even
sense on
Democrats
certain
agree.
things. Even some Democrats agree with us.
But they feel burned because they are very much guilty of what he called them out for.
Exactly.
You know, covering for the Clintons, covering for Weinstein, covering, you know, for companies, you know, that again, you know, like Kaepernick, and I took him off today's list of topics, but, you know, covering for companies even like Nike, you know, who again promote and use slave labor in other countries to make their products, you know, and so, you know, I think it's healthy for them. You know, especially, again, at a time where celebrity is so revered. And obviously, you know, you could say maybe it's a little hypocritical given that we have somewhat of a celebrity president, you know. But again, I think what people liked about Trump was that he was always very upfront and very, very transparent about who he is. He's never tried to be something he's not, which is pretty much all of politics. You know, everybody's kind of trying to be something they're not.
Yeah.
But
not us.
If it were up to me, I'd have Ricky Gervais kind of host every award show from now on.
Yeah.
You know, I think he's earned it.
Either that or they let Chappelle.
But this is last year, though. This is last year. He's not doing
No one lets him.
Well, and I thought it was cool, too, that he kind of stood up for Kevin Hart.
Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely.
who was wrongly fired from hosting the Oscars.
That's another thing, too. Yeah, I thought that was important.
Cancel culture.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
He's
called
like
those guys out, too.
Cancel culture. I don't even know what you would call that. Anti-cancel. Like,
it's almost like a double negative.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So somebody who was canceled this weekend.
Awesome segue.
Hey-o.
I'm still working on my segue.
Nice. Look at that. Yeah. Coming back with some zingers. All right. So there we go. A little update here on the list of topics for today's show. But yeah, so President Trump starting the year out with a bang.
Got him.
Got
him.
Quite literally, as you know, he took out a high-standing general, you know, of the Iraqi army.
Number two.
Two. That's right.
Number two in the entire
the
country.
Number two, right?
Underneath the mullah.
Yeah, and so of course, you know, now there's all kinds of speculation as to, you know, how long was this in the planning, you know, who was involved in the decision, but again, you know, peace through strength, right, is what Ronald Reagan used to say.
Yes.
And I think this was a huge setback for Iran, but they were definitely up to no good.
Yeah.
And certainly in that neck of the woods, I mean, you're talking about someone who you could likely convict of genocide, basically, based on his activities in that part of the world.
Without question.
Yes.
I mean,
killed thousands of his own people.
I mean, Joe. I mean, for people who haven't watched before,
Yeah.
you're one of our veterans, and you've been in that part of the world.
Sure.
And buddy Joe Wicker, you know, kind of spoke up as well. Like, you know, he was constantly in fear of some of the tactics that this very general put into place.
Yeah, he was behind a lot of terrorist attacks. Iran funds more terrorist organizations than any other country on the planet does. So, I mean, they fund Hamas, Hezbollah, all those people, Al-Qaeda, the Taliban. They fund them, and they teach them tactics as well and give them supplies. So
now, he was known, I believe, for IEDs, right? That was like
IEDs,
his signature?
Guess what? I've been hit by one. I've actually been hit by one of those IEDs, and who knows, maybe it was somehow linked to him. So I'm very glad to see this guy gone. I cannot believe that Democrats are even thinking of questioning this.
Well, they not just thinking of questioning this. Like, you've seen a complete my favorite meme over the past week has been the one of Trump with like a magic stick, and it's like, for my next trick, I'm going to get people to defend Iran and an Iranian like terrorists.
Incredible.
And it's crazy because, again, you may not agree with everything that Trump does, but I mean, you don't go around defending Iran. I mean, like I've preached about it on this show before too. I mean, like their relationship to Israel, like you said, like the funding of some of these terrorist groups, it's state-sponsored terror at the end of the day. And so that's what you're fighting against for many years now. I mean, this goes all the way back to the 40s, I want to say.
But Democrats are questioning the legality of this strike.
Yeah, I mean,
it's in Iraq.
That's one of those get over it kind of things.
It's a combat zone. But also, here's the other thing. President Trump claims that he did it to stop an imminent attack. Right. That's what he claims. But Democrats are going ahead and questioning his claim just right off the bat without having any other information. They're questioning that claim.
And let me tell you, I would welcome it. You know why? Because nothing would excite me more than to watch Democrats launch an investigation or an inquiry, basically defending the assassination of a general, of a terrorist general, basically.
There is no way to defend this. There's no way to defend.
I want to ask Chris, because Chris is more prepared than any of us
for
this topic. So, I mean, what do you think about it?
All right. So, first and foremost, this guy's a bad guy. A lot of people on the left and even foreign people, like I think Angela Merkel.
Yeah, she did.
She said it was justified.
This was a legal hit. This was a bad guy. So I've seen a handful of arguments regarding why this is a bad idea. So one of the more obscure ones is that an argument of more moral equivalency. So to them, we're the bad guy in their situation. All right, so we weren't operating in Iran. This is in Iraq. He had no business there.
Right.
He had no business there. Second, he's in Iraq. We have 2 attacks in America. So let's go back 10 years ago in the Iraq War. This man was responsible for leaving Iran to a conflict his country had no involvement in, killing over 693 of our men. That's not counting the wounded, just dead soldiers on his hands. So there's a little bit of indefensibility that starts there, and that's a decade ago. Within the last 10 days, starting today, this was 2 or 3 days ago, in the last 10 days, 2 attacks on American bases, 1 dead contractor, dead American allies. This was all proven by our intelligence to link back to Soleimani. Then we have our embassy getting burned. Then we have our intelligence agencies telling us something bad is going to happen to our soldiers in the next week if we don't do this. This is why he's here doing this.
Yes.
So
there's and the rhetoric about this being about a re-election or to distract from the impeachment is absurd. You know, I mean, he still has the re-election pretty much locked down.
This is the thing, something we've been talking about on this show for like a month or 2 now at this point, is we talked about the missile attacks that they had on the Saudi oil fields about, let's say a month ago at this point. And when you start there and you've seen the acting out of Iran, because I mean the sanctions they currently have on them are crippling, right? They're working, and the only thing they have to do at this point is attacks on embassies, attacks on American citizens that are in the area, for attention, for the global society to kind of say, hey, let's either rework the Iran deal or lessen these sanctions and everything like that. It's going the opposite direction clearly.
Yeah, we just added more sanctions the other day.
And one of the things that they're seeing is they were pushing the boundaries on what they can get away with, right? Like they're pushing the boundaries. They're saying, okay, well, we shot a missile at an oil field, nothing really happened.
Right.
Let's attack an embassy. Let's see what happened. This is what happened. So now they know this was the line. Yeah. And I think that we can jump into the World War III part of this in a minute because I think it's hilarious.
It is funny.
But that's it's a hard no, right? It's a hard stop on it. It is, Obama talked about the red line in the sand. There's your red line. Like, that was your red line, and it's over now. And I think that you're actually going to probably see a de-escalation over the entire region. It's not going to stop anytime soon. But as far as, escalating to like a World War III, I think you're going to go in the opposite direction of that.
Well, I mean, again, this seriously deflates their offensive strategy, right, for Iran. Now they're saying, well, they're pulling out of the nuclear deal. Well, they weren't adhering to the nuclear deal.
We'd already pulled out of it. They could have done whatever. They could have just
and they weren't adhering to it in the first place.
They were in it with France, I think, still, and Germany.
Well,
we'd already pulled out.
There was an article by the AP as late as just November, saying that that they continue to violate the terms of the nuclear deal.
Yeah, I mean, anybody that thought that a piece of paper was going to stop them from doing this. I mean, again, we've been talking about it since the beginning. The state-sponsored terrorism. That's what's going on over there. Yes. And you're not going to get that. That's not just going to end because of a little agreement that happened.
Not with Iran, it's not.
They were continuing to break every piece of that agreement along the way. And then they were collecting money, along the way when we weren't sanctioning them. That's why we're sanctioning them now.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that you mentioned, too, both you and Joe, was obviously the amount of control that this guy had, not only over what's happening in Iran, but also with the terrorist organizations that are in that region.
Absolutely.
And so, I mean, obviously, I think the attack in Kenya came as a surprise, but as far as who's behind it, I obviously did not. And so I think, again, it only furthers the resolve, I think, of everybody involved that we did this. Obviously, I'm sure they expected some retaliation.
Yes.
They weren't sure where or to what extent. Yes. But, somebody that I've talked to plenty of times, not on this show yet, but I hope to have them on, at some point, are a lot of the major activists from Venezuela who are right here in Tampa. And they've talked about Norma Reno being one of them, who talks about how Hamas, Hezbollah, Al-Qaeda, these guys have a presence even in South America, because of the Maduro regime. They have been allowed to set up shop, and they are basically advancing the Venezuelan agenda in our own hemisphere. And so this is one of those things where it may not have cut off the head of the snake, but I think we came pretty damn close to it.
I think that what's important about this is that from a broader view of this, people have been looking at Trump, and a lot of people within our party have been moving more towards this very isolationist policy, right? Like no involvement, no wars, no nothing anywhere in any other countries. And it's not as black and white as it seems, where it's just an all or nothing type thing. We have presence in like 192 every single country, basically.
Yeah, right.
And that's not going to stop anytime soon, even if we pull out troops from different places and we end wars and whatnot. So I think what is important to remember from our side is that dedicated strikes like this are not an entire war.
No.
We're not jumping into an entire war.
Iran does not want to go to war with us.
No one wants any of that. Exactly.
We don't want to go to war with Iran, and Iran does not want to go to war with us.
Yeah, and so I think it's important to remember that you can do other things besides go into all-out war and call a draft.
Absolutely. I mean,
absolutely.
Right?
Have you heard of Operation Praying Mantis? I believe it was in the mid-'70s, where essentially we took out their entire navy in a day. We turned.
Oh yeah.
They had zero navy after we were finished, and that's what they did. They did nothing. They settled down for a while.
Yep.
And this was an act we took. They didn't retaliate anything that was of any significance.
And people need to remember,
we showed them who was boss.
There will never be peace in the Middle East. It's in the Bible. We will never have peace in the Middle East, whether you're religious or not. I mean, you can pretty much see that's been the case for thousands of years. They've been fighting. For the next 1,000, 5,000, 10,000 years, however long this world lasts,
12 more
they're
years.
Gonna be for the next 12 years. They're gonna be at war. That's just how it is, and it's never going to end. But we always have to stay vigilant. We always have to meet them back with force. We have to fight fire with fire. This is the way it's always going to be. Get used to it.
Well, and I promise I'm not being rude here. I'm actually trying to get the show out to all the groups out there. So if there's a group where you'd like us to share the show, please feel free to reach out to us in the comments or in the inbox. We'd be happy to share with your group, with your Facebook page. And again, please subscribe to the show, leave comments for us, and definitely, give us a review. That's certainly how we get more people like you to notice the show and who may be interested in this kind of content. All right, let's go ahead and pull up the list of topics again. Dem Primary, of course, we were...
Wait, before we jump to
Go ahead.
Before we jump to Dem Primary, I just want to address there was a massive freak out over the fact that this was going to turn to World War III,
yes.
though.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely
one
massive.
of these, and
it's
not
media.
Not one of these things that's like fake, like people are just throwing it out there. I mean,
right.
there was a lot of memes, a lot of good memes. But the point is, they crashed the government website that was about the draft. Did you guys see that? The people were Googling. People were People were Googling.
Too much volume.
People were Googling, like, what are the draft rules? Like, am I going to get drafted?
Oh, right.
So heavily that volume crashed the government servers on about that page because people were really worried about that. And
right.
I think it's good to, I mean, for our age group of people who only get their news clearly through Facebook and Instagram and different things like that, you're not going to war anytime soon. We are not drafting. And probably, I would say our lifetime.
No, but you know what that says, and it's sad, right? But it says to a larger
lot of
point.
Fear-mongering.
Yeah.
What?
A lot of fear-mongering.
Well, not even that. It's the fact that people have forgotten that we've been in conflict in this part of the world, for decades.
Yeah.
Again, since I was in high school,
yeah.
we've been in the Middle East, and we have forgotten that to the extent that people think that this is just getting started.
Yeah.
No, we've been there all along. We haven't gone anywhere.
But the reason we haven't needed a draft is because there are so many brave Americans that love this country and that would do anything for this country. I know I served with a lot of them, and that's why we don't need the draft at this time.
Yeah, so
we have many people willing to.
So calm down, Instagram.
Yeah.
Calm down.
You're good. If you don't
calm
want
down, everybody.
You're good. Don't worry.
Although there had to be like some rednecks who were like, finally, I get to use my arsenal. All these guns, and they're finally going to go to good use.
What I think would be interesting is to hear from somebody that actually doesn't agree with the killing of Soleimani. If you could comment, I would love to see an argument. Maybe we could address it.
You know who I'm going to invite. You know who I'm going to invite on the show, because we have a kind of a friendly little rivalry thing on Twitter. Is actually. Oh, gosh. And, of course, now I'm forgetting her name. State representative from Orlando. But she's Iranian.
Oh, yeah.
And so, of course, she's concerned, right, for her family's home country. And that, are they going to now go into war and that sort of thing? And I would like to get her perspective on it, because
there are perspectives. And then you have, I think, Rose McGowan tweeted out. She's, your Hollywood elite that are looking at this, and they are defending Iran. There are people out there defending. Or just there's so I think it's just such an anti-Trump, like, again, Trump does something, then it means that it's a terrible thing, and we needed to defend Iran now.
And that's really what the knee-jerk reaction was. It was just like because they want to react to anything and everything he does in a negative way.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't agree with all of his foreign policy and every single move, but this one I totally do.
No, and look, again, the powers that be, the people that matter in this world, right, when it comes to foreign policy, foreign conflict, especially in the Middle East, have all given the thumbs up on this. They've all said that this was necessary and the right thing to do.
Yeah.
So
we can move on now. I just wanted to bring that up.
Favorite meme.
Thank you.
Favorite Soleimani meme.
Oh, my favorite one. Oh, there's a bunch of clips out there of like Call of Duty Modern Warfare, and it's this is what happens when the gamers get dropped in, and then they're like doing all these different things, and they're like throwing like pipe bombs and it's like that's how quickly it's going to be over. Those are my favorite ones. I'll have to send them to you.
Look, video games are just training sessions for the robot war that's going to come, I think, in 2040.
Yeah, I'm pretty decent at Gears of War. We'll be okay.
All right. My favorite one was the Tinder match, Soleimani and the cruise missile.
Oh. No, mine were the crossovers, the AOC and Soleimani crossovers, where it's like AOC can't believe that Trump killed the blind opera singer. Talking or there was somebody else that he resembled, and there was like a few of those that kind of threw Alexandria Cortez under the bus. But again, she's taken a load off the blonde jokes and kind of absorbed those for her own. And
definitely
those were my favorite.
So let's talk about the Democratic primary then.
Getting into speaking of Democrats, again, it wasn't a lot of movement over the holidays as expected. Most campaigns died off, early December as they do, and they're going to start ramping up here probably in the second week of January. But the big news coming out of the Democratic primary is Julian. It is Julian, right? It was Julian. I always get him confused.
Castro.
Yeah, it was Castro, but it was Julian, right? That was running.
Yeah.
Dropped out.
Okay, right. So he drops out of the race. I knew one of them did, but I just don't know. I can't tell them apart. You have beard or not,
Pretty racist.
But I can say that. You can't. But the Castro of the bunch, fittingly on the Democrat side to have a Castro running for president.
Yeah, he dropped out. I don't know if that's news, but he was in last place pretty much at that point.
He was polling at 0-1 for weeks, maybe months.
Well, and it's that sort of thing that, again, he was, even by the Obama administration, right? Like, he was kind of the chosen one that was supposed to rally the Hispanic community, over to the Democrat side.
Well, tell us, Johnny, did that happen?
Of course not. I mean, it's like, for so many reasons. Again, people don't realize how fractured the Hispanic community actually is, based on geography alone, and certainly, nationalism among the Hispanic community. But also the guy, born in the United States, which, again, not a huge deal, but he didn't even speak Spanish. Like, he literally had to go back and work on his Spanish, to just be able to speak somewhat intelligible Spanish.
It's a bad look.
And even that, it was terrible. His Spanish is absolutely terrible.
Yeah. So other than that, though, I mean, I don't know if there's been a ton of news and movement in the Democratic primary race. I think we're probably not too much farther away than we were a month ago. We've got the same people that are leading, and there's no new gaffes from Joe Biden over the over the Christmas break or anything like that. Shockingly.
I'm still amazed, though, that despite, Harris dropping out, now Castro, some of the others that have dropped out, and, like, Klobuchar still somehow manages to, like, stay above water.
And she actually performed well in the last debate. That's one thing that she has going for her, is that they all attacked Pete, Mayor Pete over there.
Yeah.
And she gained herself a little bit of traction. I don't know if it's going to hold up at all. But I will say, so I wasn't here when – did you guys see this whole thing about him holding a fundraiser in the wine cave?
I heard about it because it came up in the debate.
Yeah, so and that's what it was, right? Yeah. So he held a fundraiser in a wine cave, which I'm not really positive what that exactly entails.
He knows. He knows
exactly what that means.
Fancy pants over here.
We may have been sipping Clico in the middle of Vail. I don't know what you're talking about. But the point is that I don't really know what a wine cave looks exactly like. But my point is that he got attacked for it really badly, right? Yeah. And then the back and forth that they had during the debate was like, he's like, I'm not a millionaire. I'm not a billionaire. You guys all are. Like, why can't I host a fundraiser in a nice? Well, yeah, to us, Democrats were like, he's hosting a fundraiser in a wine cave. Like, big money, backdoor deals and stuff like that.
Well, that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to pin him with being, friendly to the billionaires and millionaires and that sort of thing. Meanwhile, they're all in bed with them.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think that
so dishonest.
Yeah, the only point that I wanted to make with all of that is that I'd really like it if, and he should do it. His campaign, I know maybe his campaign managers may actually watch this show a little bit, but if you're watching, I would jump on and totally own that. And make it, I would host like a wine cave event, and if he doesn't do it, one of the other Democratic primary people should definitely do it. They should take it, double down on it, and go run with it, because right now, like, he doesn't have that much that people can attack him on, other than experience, and that's something that they're all jumping on him for still. And like, I would totally own that if I was him.
My new wine cave, pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I've been to one in Germany.
Okay.
And it's exactly what it sounds like. It's just a cave with wine barrels.
Is it similar to like Burns? You go down and like there's like a bunch of wine.
It was the what?
See what I mean? He'd do it. I told you.
I'm asking for knowledge here. I'm not.
That's the extent of my wine experience, by the way. Like, I've never. I don't even drink the stuff.
Real caves.
It's like is it like a?
There's no stalagmites.
Okay, I need pictures.
It's just a cave. Yeah, like the one I went to in Germany was literally on the side of the road. It was just a big hole in the side of a mountain.
Well, they have beer caves in in Circle K's. I don't know if that's exactly the same kind of thing. I don't know where we're trying to get.
Like that, but a lot of rocks.
Like that, yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
So
real quick,
and ties into the last topic and this topic currently. So, if you're a Democrat, can you actually give Trump a pass on this Soleimani thing? Because it's an election. You have to make your opponent look bad. You can't agree with them on anything. And does that tie into the primaries?
I actually have a couple comments.
Well, they've all disagreed with him, and actually Mayor Pete came out and did fully like lay down that he supports the troops and blah blah blah, but he totally disagrees with everything in Iran. And so that, to me, no one has separated themselves and said this is a good move. I don't know what Tulsi said. I would kind of actually expect her to come out and be like, this was a we shouldn't be we shouldn't be around there. But other than her, I mean, everyone's just going to come out and tell everybody that he's a terrible person. That was a bad decision.
Yeah, you can't agree with him in this situation, can you? I mean, because of the campaign.
These guys can't. No,
well, real quick, so on that note, just to kind of, again, thank you to everybody for watching. We've got a great crowd watching.
Yeah, we do read your comments.
Yeah, so Sydney Phillips says the irony of Rose McGowan's tweet runs deep. She says she starts a movement to empower individuals individuals by speaking for yourself, then tweets on behalf of entire nations' feelings without contacting us first.
And it's not like she's been there. She's not the ambassador to Iran.
Right, yeah, exactly. And then Goldie Goldshine.
That's a good friend
which sounds
of mine.
like Bodie McBoatface.
It's his birthday this weekend, too. I'll see you this weekend, buddy.
Oh, you know who that is?
Yeah, I
know.
Okay,
funny.
He's a good guy.
So he says, how's Bernie a millionaire? I think he married one, right?
That, and he sells a lot of books nowadays.
Right.
Yeah.
So book deals, and then I'm sure there's probably some illegal insider trading like they all do.
He's been around a long time.
So. And let's see. He says, so let's see. So you also considered all right. He's getting a little into the weeds, bringing 1953 into the mix.
We'll have to jump out of the Democratic primary again until something new happens. I think that we're probably good on Democratic primary. We'll wait for you guys to do something more important on the Democratic side.
Yeah. So speaking of primaries, one of the things that's being talked about here in Florida that may end up on our ballots in this upcoming election is a jungle primary. Now, I thought, like many of you might, that a jungle primary and an open primary were similar. But really, what kind of the Cliff's Notes version on this is that in a jungle primary, it's a free-for-all, like everybody. So there's no partisan divide. In an open primary, you got to pick a side.
Yep.
You got to pick Democrat or Republican. In a jungle primary, as anything goes, and the top two vote getters then go into a runoff. And that could be a very
That is
real
not
thing.
at all what I thought it was. I thought it was where everybody gets a spear. They drop you in the Everglades, and then you just last man standing. They
like
won.
American Gladiator,
Yes.
That's
a jungle primary.
That is
all while they're playing "Welcome to the Jungle" in the background.
I love it. I like your idea.
Saber on the tennis ball gun.
Thank you.
No, nobody.
So it turns out it's much less cool than we just described.
Apparently,
yeah.
Very disappointing.
Well, and so
do you want to dive into like the key differences between the open primary and the jungle primary and what's being proposed, because this is going to be on our ballot,
right.
Which, as we know, nobody pays attention to any of the details other than us. No. And then the swaths of people are going to go in and be like, I think that sounds fair, and they're going to vote yes on this. And so
that's the thing. Yeah. The Democrats are trying to position this as something that's going to make elections more fair, right? That somehow it's going to level the playing field, But Chairman Joe Gruters,
I read what he said,
who's also a state representative, came out and said no. He goes because all the parties will do, or at least what the Republican Party is going to do, is decide who the front runner is going to be through their own primary system that they devise.
There's a way around it.
Yeah, exactly. And so the problem you get into from a grassroots perspective, right? For those of us, who kind of, are volunteers and kind of work at the lower levels, is that now you have the party handpicking who the front runners are going to be, which I think is a horrible idea. And he goes, if anything, this is actually only going to reinforce Florida's majority and possible supermajority if these jungle primaries were to take place.
Yeah, and I just think that, for me, like open primaries where somebody can vote in the Democratic primary if they're registered Republican, and then you can vote in the Republican if you're registered Democrat. Like, to me, I'm actually for that. I think that open primaries can make a lot of sense. People want what's best for the district. Sometimes you don't have one of the other candidates, and you can't vote for who's going to actually be. I think
in the case where there isn't a primary, I think you in your party, I think you should be allowed to vote in the
and something like that. Like, I'm totally for. I think that you can convince a lot of people into those. But this jungle primary thing, I think it's a complete mess. And you see it. I think California has it like this, and things aren't going well over there. Party has way too much control. You have average normal people. You guys were talking about this on the podcast last week. Average normal people who aren't really represented because the parties are the representatives, and they're hand picking people, and you don't want that. I think we're gonna have to come out really hard against this. I think you might see, if this is on the ballot, the way that it in the wording that it is. I know there's like a lawsuit going on.
Well, and I think it'd be open season on all kinds of internal partisan corruption. Right?
Oh yeah,
because now all of a sudden you can actually go and try to manipulate votes within the party, within the grassroots of the party, basically to make yourself the front runner. Or to get handpicked by the powers that be.
Yeah, exactly. And so you don't want that. So I think that upcoming over the next so many months, if this doesn't get challenged in the courts and the wording stays the same way and all those plans, I think that we're going to have to come out really really heavily against this, and I think the Tampa Bay Young Republicans will take a hard stance on this too.
Yeah. Well, and it might be a great opportunity for an op-ed.
Yeah, I think you'll see lots of op-eds from us over the next 10 months. or so. Yeah. I mean,
time's ticking.
There's a lot of bad ballot initiatives. I mean, at the end of the day, like,
between that, and, I mean, we were talking before the show about the minimum wage ballot initiative. Also that's going to be on there in November. And we've seen
it a little. Huh? You want to explain it a little?
Well, basically, that it's to raise the state's minimum wage to $15 an hour, but we've seen now in various cities and states across the country the detriment that this has. How this is really impacting small business. Big businesses don't care one way or the other.
Well, I mean, it does affect businesses like McDonald's.
No, it does, like but they can adjust a lot easier. You know what I mean? And they're still cutting.
Someone who's like a small business, merchant,
that's their
or
only
service
choice,
person.
Right? And the people at the end of the day still suffer because they get their hours cut, they get their benefits cut, they get their jobs.
They make
cut.
less money. In the end,
for me, this hits close to home because I want to open a small business in the next 12 months. I want to be able to hire somebody for 20 hours a week at say $12 an hour to start because I can't trust someone without seeing their working ability to start. If I have to pay $15 an hour, it's out of my range. Like I can't pay out of like.
I'll do it for $14.95 an hour.
You're hired.
But it's exactly the issue. I mean, again, like I hire people pretty consistently, but I'm never hiring. Like I don't want to say this like in so many words, but like I would never hire somebody straight out of college in the city of Tampa and take somebody locally for $15 an hour. You need an apprenticeship type system the same way that you're talking about. Absolutely. Because they're not going to be trained in what they're doing. I mean, I don't have McDonald's backing where I can afford to go through that kind of churn and turnover, right? Mm-hmm. And then past that, you have the digital world now, right? So I can just go online and I can find somebody to do most of that work for a little bit less than for less than $15 an hour, with all the other rules and regulations that go into doing it. I mean, one of the biggest things I think that people need to remember too when it comes to like $15 an hour minimum wage initiatives is that they do this big paintbrush and they just send it on to all the businesses. Like your average person who wants to start maybe something new, maybe they want to hire one or two people versus McDonald's. Like they rarely split the two. Right. They rarely split the corporation size with the minimum wage. It's just one size fits all. It doesn't work that way.
Well, and to kind of dig deeper industry-wise, I mean, even whereas McDonald's was able to adjust, it's these restaurants, especially your local restaurants that are going to suffer the most. Because
waiters and waitresses and the owners of the company.
Everybody knows. I mean, it's universal knowledge that the margins in a restaurant are razor thin. So these restaurants are barely getting by as it is.
Absolutely.
And to then now increase that minimum wage. Yeah. And then on top of that, then you got to get into the conversation of, do you keep the tips?
Well, I think that restaurants are an interesting thing because they kind of skirt the minimum wage now, though. They
do. Like they get a fraction. They get like $2 or $3 an hour.
The minimum wage has to be met with tips combined over an average certain course of time.
Right.
So I lived in Seattle for 8 years, and I can tell you when they raised that minimum wage, the first year, everybody was loving it. All the waiters, waitresses loving it. But then after that first year, you started seeing the news stories popping up of waiters and waitresses all over the place saying, nobody even tips me anymore because they say I make more than they do. Yeah. Why should they even tip me?
Well, and that wage increase, if it doesn't affect people's jobs, and their hours and benefits, it's just getting passed on to the consumer, where all these restaurants are having to raise their prices because that's the only way they can compete and stay open.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's economically untenable. It doesn't make any sense. You can't set someone's wage based on an arbitrary amount you decide.
And someone's
it is
arbitrary.
Is worth what it's worth.
Yeah, and it's totally arbitrary.
Can any of our viewers actually name in the comments like one place where the $15 an hour thing has worked? That would be interesting to see.
Yeah, I don't know. We don't. We have a very certain crowd that probably agrees with us.
We are monitoring. We are watching the show. And
what's our next topic? Because I know we jumped away from talking about the jungle primaries, which I think that we, I think we're all in agreement is going to be a big problem. We need to make sure that
it could be a cool idea if they tweak it a little bit.
More spears.
More towards mine.
More spears. Yeah.
It could be
to
cool.
kind of bring it back around.
It could be cool.
More spears. All right.
Thanks again to everybody watching. David Baldoff, who's a longtime young Republican. Also, again, we mentioned we're going to be talking about our fellow wire, Robbie Foster, who passed away over the holidays. He was somebody who's close to Robbie, and so we'll be talking about that in a little bit. Kelly Benjamin, big Democrat here in town. in the comment section, kind of pushing back a little bit on the $15 wage. He says, I can support splitting introduction between splitting introduction between big and small companies. I don't know what that means.
Well, I was talking about how like you can't do $15 an hour minimum wage for everybody from all sizes of companies. Your average entrepreneur is not the same as McDonald's, and so splitting a difference of like what makes sense between the two. I mean, I just
but even that's a terrible idea.
It's better. It's better,
but it's still terrible.
But again, it's just basic math. If you increase the amount of money that a company has to pay its employees, then they naturally have to increase the cost of everything that they provide.
And I don't want to be too hard on this because I think that you need a minimum wage, because before you had a minimum wage, you have a world where you basically have indentured servitude type work, and so we have some safeguards in place so that it doesn't dip too low. But I think that again, arbitrarily setting it to 15, if inflation isn't moving to that point, right? Like I don't necessarily make what that would be over 2 times more than the current minimum wage, right? So like the people that are above the as you start going up the food chain of a corporation, they're not making 2 times more in their salaries. Like, you want to complain about CEOs, sure, whatever, but like of these major companies, I'm not going to get into that now. But like when you start looking at like your middle manager, and then you start going up the manager food chain, I mean, they're not making 2.5 times more than the person at the bottom anymore. And so you can't go and just make those type of leaps. Is my argument. Well,
and again, you're going to be hurting the most vulnerable, right? Yeah. Because if you are making minimum wage and all of a sudden your food cost goes up, your rent goes up, any other kind of services that you need goes up in cost, all of a sudden that raise that you got of $15 an hour means nothing. It's gone.
Yeah. Well, I think this argument is also very hyperbolic too, because of all earners, only the bottom 3% are making minimum wage. It's a very, very small population. It's generally composed of people who are teenagers, fresh college graduates, people who are it's a temporary place in time. I mean, after you develop skills, after you have
after high school,
or after you have a resume, after you have skills and a service to offer, this goes away. It's not a problem for you anymore, and this is just a temporary.
My first job was McDonald's. I worked there for 6 or 8 months in my last year of high school as part of the high school work program thing, and then as soon as I got out of high school, I joined the Army.
But what's great about
double the money.
And what's even great about that though is the free market will come in and tell people, small businesses, like what is and isn't worth someone's time, because even in high school, I remember my first job was at Carvel. I scooped ice cream. So I mean, but I still was making probably more than minimum wage at that point. Yeah. Because that's what's around the area, right? Like nobody was going to do it for $7 an hour, even at 16 years old. I mean, you have to learn how to.
Depending on the job and your skill set, I mean, you're going to get the money that's deserved in that role. My first job ever was working at Dolphin Stadium, back then, Joe Robbie Stadium. I was making $10 an hour in 1995, which, for a high school student, first of all,
you get cooler first job.
Yeah. Oh, you don't even want to know. Let me not even tell you about 97 when they went to the World Series.
Yeah.
But again, that's going to be, I think, that's going to be the one issue that people are going to be watching the most.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it tends to poll favorably among the general public.
It sounds very, very empathetic to people who are not making a lot of money.
A living wage.
Well, the thing is, a living wage doesn't make any sense.
Well, right. And what is a living wage, right?
Because that's subjective. People that are in high school don't need to earn enough to have an apartment themselves.
True.
And there's this argument, if you take someone who makes minimum wage, they have to work 2.5 full-time jobs in order to afford a place to live.
True.
I have a solution to this problem. Get a roommate. Whoa.
Yeah.
Problem solved. And then when you develop the skills,
I have a roommate right now.
You develop the skills to earn enough to live on your own, you can do that. But living on your own is a luxury. A 2-bedroom apartment solves so many problems.
Yeah.
I do love my roommate, though.
We can jump to the next subject. So we'll probably cover this more in depth on another show in the future.
Well, yeah. Again, we've got till November to talk about it. We'll see about maybe bringing even a subject expert on. That might be interesting.
What? We're all subject experts.
All right. So, again, going down the topic list, as I said, man, there's so much to talk about. We were talking about the jungle primaries again, and we somehow got off track on the ballot initiatives. So the Florida, a lot of we're just going to kind of run through this real quick because there's a lot of congressional races that are up for grabs, quite literally. I mean, typically, incumbents have those locked down, but there's been a lot of movement in Congress, not only nationally but statewide. Here locally, for those of you not in the Tampa Bay area, that's where we originate the show from. CD13, while there is an incumbent in that race, there is I would say a very respectable primary, happening.
It's a very respectable primary going on. And
right.
For people that don't know where 13 is, because they don't know the congressional
Pinellas
mapping.
County? Yep.
It's Pinellas County, so, your St. Pete, your Clearwater area. We've got a great primary going on, and we've had one of the great candidates come on. Anna Paulina Luna came on, was a friend of the show, and then we'll have Amanda Mackey on as well.
And Matt Becker,
Matt
who's
Becker,
a personal friend.
We'll have all of the candidates on. We've got a great race going on in St. Pete right now to unseat Charlie Crist, and I think that and it's also going to be more of a lot of state interest in that one because of the fact that Charlie Crist was governor, and that was a big deal.
Yeah, it's a high profile race.
Yeah.
For someone who is literally spent his entire career in politics.
Yeah.
In elected office, and it's one of these things where Charlie Crist just doesn't go away. It's
trying to make him go away this year.
And so, I think I think the Republicans have a chance. And again, so in that race, we've got, as Jake was just saying, Anna Paulina Luna, Matt Becker, Amanda Mackey, and Sheila Griffin. Those are kind of your standouts in that race. Those top three really being the ones that I would say have the best chance. But that's certainly a race to watch. Over in CD19, just south of us, quite a primary forming there with also a really strong primary. In fact, so strong that the three biggest names in that primary are all state house representatives who are vying for that seat that is currently being held by Francis Rooney. And so in CD19, we have Dane Eagle, who is very popular across the state. Byron Donalds, who's very much a grassroots guy. Black Republican, has a very, has an amazing family. I mean, I'm like jealous of them because, his wife is also held school board seat in that part of the woods. And then Heather Fitzhagen, another state representative, again, very plugged into the community, very popular. That's going to be a really hard primary.
It's good. I mean, I'm glad to see we have strong Republican candidates in a it's a very Republican district, right? So I mean, it's important that we have a good representation there, and I'm glad it's competitive. And we didn't pick somebody out, through a jungle primary or something like that, and we get rid of all of these good candidates. We actually have like a competitive primary there.
Yeah, and then so going over to CD3, which I believe is the Jacksonville area.
My hometown. Duval.
So Gavin Rollins, who I've been told is a young Republican, in that neck of the woods, making a run at the congressional race. We were kind of speculating with Chris Licata, who's running the show today. He's going to get there's just bound to be somebody else to jump in that race. I just kind of have a feeling that's just kind of how those things go. Also, Jacksonville, very much a hotbed politically.
Yeah.
A lot of Republicans in that area, a lot of money in that area. So I definitely expect Gavin to get a primary, but he's there in that running for whose seat is that right now? Who's in there? Ted Yoho, that's right, who's also decided not to run for re-election. I can't see the CD7 race here on. We've got, what's that? Zohan? What is it? I don't know. You wrote it.
Well, guys, we are going to jump to our next topic now. I think.
So there's a Republican in that race with a last name that begins with Z. But
we apologize, and you're invited on the show.
That's in the Central Florida area. Amanda Murphy is not Amanda Murphy. Stephanie Murphy is currently in that seat. Voted for Trump's impeachment. A lot of speculation among the politicos that has made her very vulnerable. So in that race, that could be the deciding factor. And that's also going to be interesting to watch the fallout, among Democrats to see whether or not the impeachment actually helps or hurts them.
So in a more general sense, I think what you're going to end up seeing in state race, probably state house races, definitely congressional races, is people attaching themselves to Trump or, attaching themselves really, or detaching as far as humanly possible. Probably even within the Republican Party, I think you're going to even see a little bit of a little bit of both, but definitely on the Democratic side. And
when you already saw one switch parties,
and when you see that type of thing, when we have such a polarizing person at the top of the ballot, I mean, he's going to carry a lot of people across, and he's going to drag a lot of people away from on the other side in certain districts, depending on what's going on. So I think that it's one of those things that we've kind of talked about. On the more and more localized you get with some of these candidates, how much is it on them, and how much is it on what's going on with the president right now at the top of the ticket? And a lot of people who, if you watch this show politically, you kind of forget that, right? You're like, no, but this candidate did this, and then like at the end of the day, like people know one person at the top of the ticket, and maybe they know the governor.
Right. And it's unfortunate. And I was guilty of it before I got involved.
Yeah.
I had no idea who my state senator, state representative were, and still till this day, when you go door to door in some of these campaigns, people don't know the difference of who's serving in Tallahassee and who's serving in D.C.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate, but that's just kind of the nature of a free society,
Yeah.
And those things affect you way more than even a president.
Oh, the local races are far more important. Yeah.
But like you said, nobody pays attention to it,
yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Well, and again, how many people can name? I mean, not those of us here, but even among the people watching, how many of them can name more than a few of the people on the school board, for instance?
Yeah,
oh, gosh,
I definitely not. I mean, the people. Well, I would assume none of us have kids. So, actually, Johnny's got one kid.
One.
He's got that's why you've started to.
And he does too.
Yeah, well, you've started to understand who's on your school board, but especially for us that don't have kids yet, we're like, well, who cares about the school board?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we care because we care about like politics so deeply, but the average person absolutely does not care about school board. I mean, people in general are incentivized to not care because, it's like, why invest all of this time and effort when you could be busy making money in your profession and focus on like local politics, right? Like we do it because we attention. Yeah.
So, to kind of move on, in kind of the same light, in talking about elections, certainly federal elections, there was an Axios poll. Thanks again to Chris Licata for this topic. 2024 GOP kind of, obviously way early in the process, but they did take a light poll of who they figured, might be, the post-Trump nominee among the Republican Party. Pence polling at 40%, 80% among boomers, I believe is how I'm reading that. Don Jr. polling at 29%. Of course, his favorability ratings skew younger.
Yeah.
Nikki Haley, who I think a lot of us here like, is polling at a strong 26% among that group. Ivanka, of course, had to get thrown in there. She's polling at about 16%.
Two of Donald Trump's kids.
Yeah, I think that's.
Are in the top
I think that's skewed. I mean, the people.
It's super early.
Well, who's this polling? Republicans?
Axios. No, it's a big political, like Politico, or it's a big online.
But I mean, what was their sample? Like,
I mean, you have to question all these polls. I mean, but I mean, looking at the names on there, it's like it's not surprising to me that like people with the last name Trump are polling favorably for 2024. Right. I think that's kind of a bad way to look at it from like any standpoint that like they were good, so their kid's gonna be great. Like,
but they're very in the public eye. These aren't. This isn't Clinton's kid, Chelsea. Who nobody really knows. We know Don Jr. We know Ivanka.
Well, Don Jr.'s done a fantastic job of building up a nice social media base too. He's really played off of what his dad did, and I actually have not read the book. We've probably need to get on that one. Yeah,
awesome.
It's an
he
audio
does not
book.
Hold back.
Well, and just as a side note, Marco Rubio, Ted Cruz, and Pompeo, all polling in the single digits in that poll.
And one of the things that I see that I guess I don't know if he was on the poll or not on the poll, but like our governor, Ron DeSantis, the way that he is running right now, the way that he is just on a roll and popular in our state. I mean, to be a popular governor in Florida going into 2024, I mean, like he has all the momentum in the world to carry that.
The big question is, can you, as a one-term governor, jump into a presidential election?
Because that sounds like Christie. Christie was super popular, right? And then when he actually did run for president, he just fizzled.
It's a whole different ballgame.
Oh, it's a completely different ballgame. And I don't know how he performed. I mean, he wasn't the best debater in the entire world. I mean, Chris Christie does not visually appeal to people the same way that a lot of other candidates do.
But Chris Licata and I were talking about it before the show, and in a similar way, like again, you talk about public speaking. Yeah. He's not a great public speaker. Yeah. Not really sure how well he'd do like in a debate.
You can get away with it at the governor level. Yeah, right. I really do think you can. Like it's one or two debates. People don't really watch it. And then you kind of like you're running based on a lot of times the national ticket, what's going on over there. But yeah, when like you said, when you get to the national level, it's so scrutinized. Your every move is out, and then you have to be good on TV. You have to be good on stage.
Now he's polling in the 70th, 80th percentile, which is amazing, especially given how divided we are politically these days.
Nobody dislikes him.
Well, right. So does that translate nationally? And I don't think it does.
I think that it would translate nationally, given that he improves at basically from like a speaking standpoint, because one of the things that I noticed this because we're so involved with politics, I noticed there's this massive gap between your locally elected officials, like their speaking abilities. There's not saying that there's not good people out there, like plenty of them are good speakers. Then you jump to like the state level and you start looking at Congress, and you see kind of how they get better and better at as they do it over the years. But when you make that jump to national and you hear them give speeches, I mean, it's already supposed to be their full-time job, but it is like their full-time job to get good at speaking. And they have coaches, and they're like invested into it. And I know I can just see the difference in the presence.
I'd say if he can stay above 60, 70% in approval rating, sure, give it a shot. But it'd be sad to lose somebody like him who's doing so well after a single term.
And that's probably how he would look at it too. I would assume if you're going in as a super popular governor of Florida, like I'm sure you're going to run for re-election. So maybe 2024 is not really the best example, maybe, but 2028 it sounds so far away now at this point.
Doesn't it? That's crazy, but only 8 years away.
I think these poll numbers are reflective of, like you said before, who's at the top of the ticket. Right now we have...
Who's relevant right now.
Everyone here is attached to Donald Trump, and that's why people are... This is almost like a popularity contest type.
Well, that's what I was saying.
Here.
That's what I was saying before the show is like, you're not seeing Larry Hogan, who would probably jump into a presidential race in 2024. You're not. There's all these kind of congressmen, senators that kind of come out of the woodwork, like we're seeing on the Democratic side. When a open primary comes about.
Yeah, the person that stands out to me on the list is Nikki Haley, because she's attached to Trump, but she's not just attached to Trump. She's accomplished on her own, right? And she did a great job as an ambassador to
Very
UN.
Powerful speaker.
Extremely powerful speaker. So I think she's a strong candidate in come 2024.
Well, like Ivanka probably doesn't even want to run.
No, she probably wants her
Don Jr. maybe.
No, John Jr.'s enjoying his life. Yeah. Ivanka wants to get her clothing line back.
Definitely, maybe.
I do. No, I think Ivanka. Because if you watch her, she's been very, her and her husband have been very close to a lot of the policy decisions that have been taking place during this administration.
Yeah.
I think she'll run for something federal. I don't think it'll ever be president.
I don't know.
I don't think president either.
Not in the short term.
Hot take.
Yes, I would. I would absolutely.
Literal hot take.
I would absolutely. And not just because she's beautiful. Honestly, she is extremely intelligent. She's probably one of the smartest people in that entire family, quite frankly. She's very eloquent. I think she'd be a great president.
I think ideologically, though, is she maybe... I mean, certainly for New York, I think she'd be a good fit. But is she ideologically too moderate for a Republican nationally?
Not with her dad. Trump. Not with her dad, who he is. People are not going to get away from it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, but again,
I agree with
if you go back and look at Donald Trump before he became a political candidate, a political being, like he was a very moderate guy.
Yeah.
He was a very center of the road.
He was in New York. He
gave money to both sides.
It's a lot of. I mean, it's campaigning, right? Like you alter the messaging to what fits.
That's what they call Rockefeller Republican,
Yeah,
that's right.
So I guess we can jump on to the next topic, because this is 2024. We've got some years to figure it out.
I know. All right. So actually making really good time. I think,
right on time. I mean, I think
about the hour mark.
I think it's perfect time to introduce kind of if you're watching this show. Tampa Bay Young Republicans, are heavily involved with the yard sign, and then from that comes the Florida Federation of Young Republicans, and we have friends all over the state, all over the country that are kind of in the same group of friends, and we had Robbie Foster passed last week. At this point, I think his funeral's today. Correct me if I'm wrong. Tomorrow.
Yeah.
In Jacksonville, and he was the president of the Florida Federation of Young Republicans for 3 years. Was it total?
I believe it was about 3 years. And so again, he was the founder of the Jacksonville Young Republicans, and then later on went on to be the chairman of the Florida Federation of Young Republicans. As I publicly stated on Facebook, Robbie and I because of the internal politics of the Young Republicans, we kind of had picked our sides, and we kind of found ourselves on opposite ends of a lot of issues. And again, the internal politics of the Young Republicans. But there's no doubt that there is a huge void that he has taken with him in this loss. He was a huge personality. He brought a lot of energy to the Young Republicans. He was always somebody that, again, truly, I think, embodied living each day to its fullest.
Yeah, definitely. And if you've had the chance to meet him, as many of our colleagues have, because he was so involved at the Young Republicans level, at the state level and in Jacksonville in particular. He had an impact on everybody, and I think that it's sad to see somebody passing. I think he was 35. At the time,
35 years old. Actually, today he would have been his 36th birthday.
36th birthday. Yeah, I mean, it's terrible to see. He will be missed. The thoughts and prayers and condolences from the Tampa Young Republicans, from me, from everyone that's come in contact with him.
Yeah, and if you'd like to learn more about Robbie, and pass on your condolences, there was a great write-up at floridapolitics.com.
Yep.
So thanks to Peter and A.G. Koznarski, I think is how you pronounce it, but they did a great write-up with some sentiments from the mayor of Jacksonville, Lenny Curry, who I know he was close to, and again, he was somebody that really had his kind of finger on the pulse of what was happening across the state. And while we didn't agree on a lot of the internal things that happened with the Young Republicans, he's somebody that truly cared about Florida and the Republican Party more than most people I've ever met that are involved in this process. Just incredibly passionate, lots of energy, and just was just again an abundance of energy and a huge just character among the Republican Party.
Yeah.
And so it's a huge loss, and he's going to be incredibly missed for a long time.
Yeah, I completely agree. And then we are missing Anibal this week. He's attending the funeral up in Jacksonville. He's going to come with a prepared statement next week to kind of go over
right, and not to step on his toes, but Anibal and Robbie were close. They were really good friends, and hence why he's chosen to drive across the state with his wife Lauren to attend the funeral tomorrow. Today there were some other kind of social activities all around, this kind of remembrance. But again, it's to lose somebody that young, and it wasn't too long ago where we also lost here locally Stephen Gately.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we had a great fundraiser last year. At the end of it was a Christmas party last year.
Yeah,
we have been, you lose friends at young ages, and I think it just Guido, if he's listening, put out a nice thoughtful statement. I don't know if it was necessarily about Robbie, but it was about in general just a lot of people, especially over the holiday season, losing young people, and it just reminds you to kind of live life to the fullest and be thankful for every single day, and that's where we're at right now.
Yeah, and and so it's especially in this process.
Yeah.
You get really close because you realize that ideologically you just kind of you fall in line, and you become a lot closer because of how much you have in common, and we just spend a lot of time together, working on campaigns, attending meetings, going to different political events. I know people who've traveled the country with Stephen Gately, and I know people that, again, have worked on numerous campaigns with Robbie and spent countless hours working on Young Republican stuff with Robbie. And so you grow really close. And again, aside from the fact that he was really young, he was someone that was really committed to the process.
Yeah.
And despite, again, our disagreements, he was somebody that, again, you recognize, the impact that someone had.
Sure.
And he's going to leave a huge void in the Young Republicans and certainly across the state. So again, our condolences to the Foster family and all of our fellow Young Republicans in the Jacksonville area, but certainly those who are close to him across the state. He'll certainly be within our thoughts. And again, he's somebody who, in remembrance, he's motivated me really to take full advantage of every opportunity and every day that comes along, because again, you truly never know. I was in a pretty severe car accident earlier, last year, and you just never know when your time's up.
Yeah, I totally agree. So again, I'm gonna leave it to Nebel to give our official statement next week. But I mean, I think that again, like just talking out loud through it, again, condolences to his family and everything, and will be missed for sure. And not to segue too quickly, I won't have a fun segue for this one, but we'll kind of wrap up the show, I think, in talking about what is upcoming, what there is to look forward to, some things that we can enjoy, and if you want to get more involved with what we're doing, 2020 is gearing up to be an extremely politically active time. I mean, right? Like there's a presidential election this year, and there's a lot of awesome stuff coming down the pipeline.
It's going to be a huge ticket.
Yeah.
From president all the way down to school board. There's going to be a lot of people running for office. And again, I think, I think it is an appropriate segue because I think, in just talking about Robbie, I think it goes to show that getting involved in the political process is not only important because you are genuinely having an impact on your community, on your state, on the country, but it's a great way to meet people. It's a great way to grow close with others. You truly form a camaraderie when you work on a campaign together. And even when you get involved in an organization like the Young Republicans.
So did you guys have any other final announcements or anything that you wanted to do? I mean, I was gonna hit on that one myself, no problem. But did you guys have anything else you want to say? Chris, I appreciate you joining us. This is his first show, so
nice job.
This has been fun. I really look forward to the future coming back.
Awesome.
So
having more notes.
Yeah. Well, thanks for kind of jumping in there at the last minute.
If you want any of our actual, our references towards where we get our information from, Chris has a full write-up, and you can actually go in and check where we got the info from. At the end of the show. Oh, no, actually, I do have one more announcement. Congratulations on your engagement.
That's right, yeah.
Congratulations, buddy.
Thank you very much,
And, coolest ring ever. And if you don't follow Chris, I don't know if we have his handle up ready for on Facebook, but absolutely, Chris, you're significantly better at like manly things like building and welding and stuff like that, and you have you actually made a ring. I mean, that's the coolest thing ever.
Yeah, I designed it to match my watch. I'm a big fan of the shape of this watch. I love wristwatches, so it matches my watch, and it's a more feminine version, but I manufactured, designed, and completely finished the entire thing myself. It was pretty
impressive.
Yeah.
So good luck to everybody else who
Yeah.
has to
that just buys their ring. Yeah,
right.
not was not gonna be the way that I did it. That's for sure.
I don't think Michelle would have said yes if you had made the ring.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, but no, congrats, absolutely to you. And then did you have? I know you don't have any announcements for us like that. So how's
How's life?
Else?
Oh,
anything else?
Good. It's great.
All right. Perfect. Joe, ladies, ladies, Joe's Instagram handle will be below the show pretty soon too. So he's got
we got to work
for
on
you. And then but I guess my final announcement then is that we have a awesome event. I am stoked for it. At the end of this month, coming up for the Tampa Bay Young Republicans, we have the whistleblower that worked with Project Veritas to expose CNN. He is going to be coming and speaking at our Tampa Bay Young Republicans meeting on January 27th. You can go on Facebook and go onto our page and find the event. Maybe we'll attach the link to this show. But he's going to talk about – I mean, this was national news. We're very, very lucky to have him. We're lucky that he's in the Tampa Bay area at this point. And is able to make time in his schedule. I know he's in D.C. right now, and we're going to have a really incredible meeting. I think that people are going to find a lot of interest in what he's saying. Again, it was a national attention, news-grabbing thing that he did. And then on top of it, we do have our Tampa Bay Young Republicans elections. So if you wanted to get more involved, which I know some people have started to get more involved, I've been getting the emails, I've been getting the DMs and all the extra messages coming up, because again, it's 2020. Get more involved. Tampa Bay Young Republicans Board of Directors is all up for election. And come talk to me. Let's get somebody in some spots. If you want to get more involved, please
it's
please
a fun
do.
group. We have a lot of fun.
And
honestly.
you can come hang out on the podcast.
And the president's
too.
a little.
We go to cigar bars.
The president's a little iffy, but
we're hanging out at Barrymore. We have a good time.
Yeah. Well, and actually, I don't want to overpromise and underdeliver, but I think we might try to live stream the show, since pretty much the cast of this show is comprised of the Young Republicans.
Oh,
nice. I think it might be cool, especially giving your guest. That's a huge get. And for those of you who don't know, we actually have history with Project Veritas, where we had actually had Hannah and I'm forgetting her last name, but she was the girl who played the prostitute in the very first Project Veritas sting that took down Acorn, and she actually came to our Christmas party like years ago.
Awesome, yeah, and I think this is going to be just as exciting as that. I mean, I think he's a fantastic guest, and he's got an incredible story.
We'll have to get James O'Keefe in at some point.
Happy to do it. I know that Project Veritas.
Charge for that one.
I know that actually they will be putting together a nice video for us. Actually, the Project Veritas guys are actually going to be putting together a whole a summary. So we'll share that with everybody.
Yeah. So
very cool. If you haven't watched Project Veritas's videos, you need to go do it. There's hours and hours of content across different, I guess, a lot of
platforms.
A lot of democratic organizations that have done some pretty foul things and have said some pretty terrible things about what they think of their voters, etc.
No, I'll tell you, you watch Project Veritas video and you're going to be screaming at your monitor as to why this isn't like out in the news. Yeah. And obviously, I think that is a perfectly clear example as to how in bed like all of these media networks are, together and protect each other because, I mean, again, they've taken down organizations. They're now basically taking apart, CNN, but again, there's this insular kind of circle the wagons type of mentality where they know that Project Veritas is out to discredit them. It just never ceases to amaze me, like the footage that James and his team continue to get.
How do they not figure it out? Like that new guy that something's about him.
Yeah.
He keeps asking these really weird questions.
Yeah. John, did you have any announcements for us that were outside of that?
No. Thank you so much to everybody for watching. We appreciate you. Again, watching The Yard Sign, Facebook.com/The Yard Sign. Find us on YouTube. And again, please subscribe and review the show, whether it be on Facebook or YouTube. For 2020, I promise. Maybe with this show, we'll get the audio version up. It's something I've been working on. But one of the other things is, that we're going to be working on in 2020 is financial support for this show. Can't thank you enough for watching. Thank you to everybody for being on the show. We'll be back again at Monday and 7 o'clock again right here on Facebook and YouTube. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Thanks to Chris Licata for producing the show. Great job, buddy. We'll see you next week.